I continue to believe that placing more bets on customer success and growth is wise in this economy. If all you are doing is focusing on new business, then you're missing the easiest revenue opportunities that are sit within your customer base, and also the biggest revenue risks to your business, which are cancellations within your customer base.
So I'm here with Andrew Davies, CMO of Paddle. Welcome, Andrew. Really great to have you here on the series we're running. Would you mind just giving a bit of an intro to yourself? Tell us a bit about you and what you want to get out of this, what we're here sort of to talk about.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Paul. My name is Andrew. I've got the privilege of serving Paddle as their Chief Marketing Officer. Paddle is it's a merchant of record. It's a business that helps software companies operate and grow automatically. So we take care of all of the complexity relating to payments and subscription management and international sales tax compliance and fraud and chargebacks, so that you can focus on growing your software company. And we do that for about 4,000 different companies.
Yeah, it's an amazing tool as well. Firsthand, looking at it and having a lot of demos myself, can see, it's so useful. It just streamlines everything down. Would you give us a bit more of an insight into just the Paddle journey, how you've got to where you are, what the ambitions are? Just want to really get under the skin of Paddle a little bit more.
Yeah, in terms of our ambitions, we want to help thousands of software founders make their dent in the universe, and we want to do that by helping them focus on their customer and their product. That we don't meet many founders who want to be caught up in understanding global sales tax compliance, or that want to understand how currency can impact price points or willingness to pay. And so we want to free leadership teams of software companies to focus on the things that really count: building that customer relationship, building new product, and making sure they take it to market fast. Our journey has been doing that for the last 10 years, and we've scaled pretty rapidly over that period. And over the last year or so, we've completely replatformed, and so we've got a product that's now ready for the next decade. And we've rebuilt a bunch of our leadership team, and so we're all ready and hungry for the next decade too. And so we're excited about making sure that businesses of all kinds, but mostly it's early stage software and app businesses. Although we do have later stage $50 million ARR businesses who are bringing their business to us because of some of the compliance issues in their finance stack, but really helping these businesses attack their markets and scale really efficiently. And as long as we can keep doing that, then we're happy, because our greatest success is when customers scale faster, because we charge a take rate model. It's a percentage of our customers' revenue, and so we're completely aligned with their success.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fair to say you're not standing still anytime soon, are you? Taking on plenty of work. Well, I love the ambition of it, and I think that's just so essential in SaaS, right? SaaS in itself doesn't stand still; it moves very quickly, just as an industry, but also the customers, the clients, what everyone needs, and of course, regulatory considerations around that are always moving. So, really, if you're thinking about it, when I think of Paddle, I'm thinking about all of the complexities around launching a SaaS. All of the things that are kind of hurdles to get over are the things that you're simplifying down, so they can just focus on those two end goals, really. Because what is SaaS? SaaS is an experience. It's experience and outcomes, isn't it? You want your customers to, generate valuable outcomes from your platform, so they can make better informed business decisions, and need to have a great experience really while they're doing that. And by great, I mean simple, easy to use, get to what they need to, right? And I think that sums up the concept of Paddle so well, taking that pain out so they can really do that for their own clients. I love being a SaaS for SaaS, like you are. I think, you're best placed to get to know your clients so well, because effectively you've been through it by building your own platform and launching that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was a SaaS founder before I joined Paddle as CMO. Sold my business in 2019, worked for the acquirer for a couple of years. And so, have deep resonance with the software founders we serve. And that was one of the joys of coming and joining Paddle, was my ideal customer is now, the persona I previously adopted as a software founder. And we've got that quite a lot across the Paddle leadership team, previous founders. And so, yeah, we really do care about helping our customers grow.
No, I think that's evident. And one of the ways that's clearly evident is, the extra marketing material you do as a business, and obviously kudos to yourself, who's been a huge part of that. And one of those things in particular is that monthly SaaS market report. I think that's such an excellent deep dive into taking your own tool. It's like you're creating the self-fulfilling ecosystem. You are a SaaS for SaaSes, you understand SaaSes, then using that information, you are then better educating the SaaSes that are giving you that information so they can learn from it themselves, right? So would you mind just I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that SaaS market report, but, would you mind just giving a light overview for those that aren't of what that is and what people get out of that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, let's just step back for a second and think about the principles that underlie why we do it first, because that might be interesting to people. We have two fundamental principles as a business. The first one is that we want our product to do it for you. Many people build SaaS businesses that help you do stuff more easily or more effectively or better. We want to remove the work from you. So we want our product to do it for you so you have time back in your day. And then from a brand promise and how our people show up, we want to be the most helpful brand in SaaS. And so we constantly get this feedback. I constantly get this feedback from when our teams engage, is that they show up as being helpful. So we try and be helpful across all of our different touch points when we're in the room with customers, when we're at trade shows and events. But our content and data-driven content is a key way that we can be helpful. And so, that's the principle that sits behind our SaaS index and our SaaS market report. And so if we break down what that is, we, as well as our core billing platform, we've got a couple of other business units, and one of them is a company called Metrics, a product called Metrics that we acquired a couple of years ago, which allows anybody with a billing stack that isn't Paddle, as well as Paddle, to plug in and get benchmark data and MRR growth and churn data for themselves. And then we aggregate that and use that aggregated analysis to publish monthly reports. And we see about 37 billion of ARR. So it's a pretty sizable data set. And then we've got a couple of our team who query that every single month. We pull out an index for B2C and B2B. We monitor that, and then we publish content around the trends we are seeing. And month on month, sometimes it's more of the same, but often we find some really interesting tidbits that could be useful for SaaS businesses who want to grow more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really what I want to drill into. That nuanced information, those real deep dive details that are going to help people make informed decisions. So, let's talk a bit about the most recent report, June. What were your key takeaways? There's a few things I'd like to talk about, but I'd just like to hear your summary. What were the key takeaways from that? Because I know it was a big look back on the whole half as a whole, right?
Yeah, so let's take this first half of the year, because, as you say, the July update looked at H1 2024 in summary. A few things were really interesting. As we entered the year, we saw MRR growth being driven by something that we hadn't ever seen before in the index's history, which was reactivation MRR. Businesses that had previously cancelled and were now coming back to that same vendor. So there's two things that are happening there. Number one, either it's people going and cancelling this service and then coming back later because they knew they needed it again and maybe budgets were opening up, or people had gone and chosen a lower cost provider and then had come back to their provider of choice when they had the budget or when they'd had a bad experience. That was really interesting, and certainly at the beginning of the year, February, March, we were encouraging everyone to take advantage of what we were seeing there and communicate to lost customers, to do reactivation campaigns. So that was interesting. We also saw this nuance in churn data about companies who are optimizing for logo churn or revenue churn. As you're thinking about retention of customers, you have to decide whether to allow them to shrink their basket size but stay with you, pause their plan or downgrade their plan, or whether you either want the logo or nothing at all, and they have to stay at their current size or you lose them completely. And we saw this bifurcation of strategy of people trying to do one or the other. So there's some really interesting things to chew through. But then as we skip to the end of H1, really we're entering the summer period, which, if you look at it on a short time frame, daily or weekly, looks pretty volatile because there's lots of stuff going on. There's people on holiday, which means, particularly in Europe, which means that there's less people selling and less people buying. And that happens particularly in the B2C index, but it's also there in the B2B index. But also we saw a few other things that netted out actually to a pretty stable month. I think it was around a 9% CAGR, 9% growth through July. But what it meant was that, what was driving it was upgrades were up significantly, but also there's a bunch more downgrades. So lots of people making decisions as they came to the second half of the year. So people planning for H2. So I think what's happening there is that we are seeing people operate on shorter planning cycles and make more decisions throughout the year. And then also new MRR was down, that impact often of the holiday season where less people are buying and selling, and churn was pretty stable. So yeah, the net was pretty stable, but there was lots of volatility that sat underneath it. And we believe that we've kind of hit and have seen now for 3 or 4 months a bit of a new normal in the B2B index, not growing anywhere near as fast as it was 3 or 4 years ago, with all of that zero interest rate phenomenon fueling that growth. But it does mean that people can plan a little bit more stability, and obviously we hope for more optimism as we pass through H2 and into next year.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, right? There's a lot of you know, global geopolitical economic plays at the moment that might well impact. So I think people will be really appreciative to see any stability they can get their hands on at the moment, right? Um, I think one of the things that's interesting there as well is how the B2C and the B2B sort of reports cooperate. Do you see, I mean, I would think, and you're the expert here, but it would make sense in a way for if the B2C sort of findings that acts as a bit of a barometer for the B2B findings. If you're finding consumers on the very ground, that's eventually going to lead the market overall. Obviously, it's a very different market, of course, but does that ever give you an early indication of then what B2B companies can expect to help them sort of plan even more ahead?
Yeah, it does. And of course, firstly, these things are really messy to try and decide what's B2B and B2C because it's a huge rise of what we're calling prosumer, which sits in the middle, people selling to individuals, but they're actually buying for a business case. And that prosumer or consumer case often can become a business case. You see that particularly in some of the tools that are sold into employee experience, things around mental health or workplace development, and also in knowledge sharing and collaboration. So it is a bit messy, but your core point is absolutely correct that B2C tends to be more volatile and tends to precede the B2B trend. So when we started to see the CFO kind of hammer come down and lots of cancellations, we saw that first in people cancelling their personal subscriptions and then that flowing into a business context. And the other piece of that is not just maybe it being felt quicker in people's pockets. It's also that often the term length in B2C is much shorter. It's much harder to get out of an annual plan or a quarterly plan or even a monthly plan than a B2C subscription that might be weekly or sometimes one-off payments that are happening regularly.
Yeah, so I suppose that would give a good confidence indicator what's happening in B2C, the positive or negative, what you might take away for B2B. And I think that's very true as well. You said it's complex, and obviously it's very unique to your situation. It's taking this report and gathering, okay, what is, for companies out there, what is their situation? How does that resonate with some of the learnings here to help them make informed decisions? So with that in mind, and again, it's a very difficult question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are the main sort of top level things you would advise for people, just generally, in the SaaS industry, looking to market their product? I'm talking about marketing teams and CMOs for the next half of the year. What should they be considering now, do you think, with this information?
So let's split this answer into two. The first is that I continue to believe that placing more bets on customer success and growth is wise in this economy. If all you are doing is focusing on new business, then you're missing the easiest revenue opportunities that are sit within your customer base, and also the biggest revenue risks to your business, which are cancellations within your customer base. And marketing can do that via investing in customer marketing, in education, in training, in sharing best practice, as well as building relationships, field events, etc. First thought is customer success and growth. Make sure you've got some efforts there rather than just on new biz. And then in terms of the new biz, it's making sure that you place bets where you believe there is upside. There are lots of people who are blowing up or redesigning their go-to-markets right now. There's a few reasons behind that. We can talk about the difficulty of outbound and how AI has meant that everyone's inboxes are completely overwhelmed. We can talk about the rise of community and ecosystem. But really, the three things I would focus on is number one, internationalization. We might come back to that in a minute. You mentioned that there are a huge number of people going to vote right now, as well as other international issues that are causing instability. And what that means is that if you have an internationally diverse customer base, you're able to keep winning in areas when others are facing challenge. So internationalization, and we can talk more about that in a sec. AI will be the second one. So there will be upside in AI. We can come back to that in more depth. And the third one is community and partnerships, in making sure that your teams are showing up and being real in real world relationships or digital relationships with real people, that you are building ecosystem partnerships, that you understand what's going on across the value chain that your customers are in, and that you're placing bets where whether you want to call it all bound or near bound or all of these cool terms that people are coming up with, making sure that other people are selling with you and on your behalf to your ICP rather than just your sales team reaching out. So internationalization, AI, and that community and partnerships play will be three things I'd advise people to focus on.
And I guess it's sort of building those out based on not just your scenario, but what works for you better, right? And I think the AI thing is obviously a really important point. How do you combat that saturation now? Because everyone's got access to AI. Like you say, everyone's inbox is really inundated anyway, and outbound was always getting harder. AI has helped outbound increase, which has therefore added to that saturation, which has inadvertently, reduced conversion rates on outbound, and people are looking for other areas. So how do you think people can and should be using AI specifically in these sort of marketing and sales campaigns then?
I think, three things. Firstly, your team can be more productive, your company can be more helpful, and your operations can be more efficient. And I think the challenge comes where people you split all those up or forget parts of it, and maybe just focus on the team being more efficient. What I mean by that is the company can be more helpful because now you can use interesting applications of Gen AI in order to generate growth guides and new advisory kind of statements and recommendations into your customers. So you can be more helpful through your product and service offering. Your operations absolutely can become more efficient. Your routing, your customer success, your support, your management of tickets. There's a bunch of stuff there that can be more efficient. And then when it comes to your team, I think it's amazing that these tools enable non-technical marketers to be technical. And so, I've got marketers on our team who aren't particularly technical, but are now building queries and scripts and building mini products, which is a really powerful application of someone who would have been a generalist marketer in days gone by and now is a technical marketer. So those are the three things I focus on. And yes, you can chase every single bit of interest that's in the market, and you'll be working 24 hours a day for the next month just to keep up. Really, it's about finding what matters to your customers and what matters to your company, and choosing a few of those bets to go a bit deeper on.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that, AI, all of these things, it breeds such a wealth of increased activity. Really, I think what people should be looking at, as to your point, is looking at actually reducing down, what they're doing, but being able to do more in specific areas and being able to do that faster and better, and being data led, which of course, one, that's the crux of really Paddle's tool, right? And it also as well, the report that you do helps people make those informed decisions. But I think, actually, off the cuff then, if we're talking about AI, what are, in terms of people's AI tool stack right now, what are the main things that you're looking at? Because there are a million places to start, and but what's either got you hyped at the moment, or what are the things you're saying of all of the stuff that's fallen by the wayside? This is actually what we're continually using.
So rather than just name drop a few tools, because every tool has got 16 different competitors, and we can go into that, but I think let's look at the different applications, specific applications that I'm finding super interesting. HubSpot was one of the companies that made famous the strategy of lead magnets. They had the website Grader that we all know and love back in the day that was a massive lead magnet for them. I'm seeing more and more businesses look at building GPT wrappers in order to deliver new tools to their customer base as a method of generating top of funnel leads. So rather than a report or an ebook or some form of quiz or questionnaire or survey, why don't we actually provide some bit of value that precedes the tool we are trying to sell? I think that's one area that's really interesting. So marketers actually being mini product builders as part of delivering value and being helpful to the audience top of funnel. I think that's super interesting. If we then go right down to the bottom of the funnel and give another example, there are a whole range of tools that are doing some interesting mass customization of that outreach. And so, I'm very tired of we'll be able to send 1,000 messages on your behalf and they'll all have a little bit of tailoring in them. What I'm interested in is companies that are enabling, vendors that are enabling us to do tweaks within video and other high fidelity formats that allow us to, for example, record 2, 3, 4 minute detailed explainers of how our customers can take advantage of trends that we're seeing, and then customize the voice and the video to make sure it's absolutely personalized to that in individual prospects' interests, and using data that we've gathered. I think the third thing here that's really important is that the data points you can use in your business are the failing or the success of these models. And so if you aren't investing on building a clean data infrastructure, then you're going to be lapped by competitors who have, because the amount of tooling and the amount of value you can deliver your customers on top of that comes forward in leaps and bounds when you've got that clean data set underlying.
No, I agree completely, and it comes down to, like you said, doing things better, not faster or bigger. I think the challenge with AI there and then is like you're saying, using it to build those much more personalised campaigns. I mean, for everyone listening, you heard it from a CMO first. How do I want to be contacted by people who are actually personalising to me what we're doing? And I think AI can help you understand, well, if you are targeting a prospect, what AI can do is give you a wealth of information on what that building the journey that prospect has been on in their marketing efforts, let's say, what they've been doing over what time, and actually assessing what's worked for them. And also, when you're going with a cold outbound campaign, say, we know this, the challenge is then doing it in not a creepy way that doesn't look like you've built some huge book on someone. But I think that's where AI really comes in, doesn't it? It's actually increasing, well, empathy, isn't it? As humans, that's what we have that AIs don't. We can empathise with someone based on their position, and what AI can do is give us a really better picture of the position that prospect is in. So I think that's really valuable. And I really liked what you said in terms of those three core approaches that SaaS companies should be focusing on, because you're complementing AI with the human touch by saying building communities. Because, in a world right now where everything can be done at people's fingertips, I think there's always snapbacks, isn't there, one way or the other. And I think events, broad sweeping statement, events are on a comeback, right? Events never went away, but that human touch, is so important right now. Building those communities where people can actually come and engage is hugely important, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think if we're creating campaigns that complement each other in that way, you're gonna cover all those bases. But that kind of then brings us to the internationalization aspect. Then I don't know if you want to expand a bit more on that. If anything you're seeing in markets for SaaS companies, like where is winning at the moment? What markets are new and hot?
So again, let's go back to some of those principles. Firstly, one of them is that we find different economies emerging at different speeds, and therefore finding a way to be playing and winning in lots of geographic territories is a key strategy to make sure you can continue growing, perhaps when your home market isn't. Underpinning this is, number one, a rise in empowered consumers globally, people being able to pull out a credit card or sign up an invoice from economies that people perhaps would not have thought of 5 years ago. Then also the massive rise in self-serve product, which means you don't have to have salespeople in territory going and selling, because people can just try and buy and go through a freemium. And those two things mean that the world is flat. There's competition from everywhere. And so other people will be building competitors to you in other domestic economies, which gives you an additional incentive to go there and make sure you're winning if you've got a big global ambition. And so, if you think about where is growing fast, well, we do produce data on this, and we can link it to in the show notes if it's interesting. But often we see markets in Northern Europe and in APAC growing faster in percentage terms than the US market. And so what that means is it might not be a bigger market, and the absolute dollars might not be increasing as much, but often the percentage is higher. And so there are some bets to play there. And then it comes down to how. Do you choose one market? Do you go after 5 at one time? And really that comes down to your service offering of what you can deliver. Because when you get into internationalization, you've got to think about true localization, which means, do we need to operate in their language? Do we need to market in their language? How can our service be tweaked for their local culture or norms? And then we get into all the fun stuff that we just take care of in terms of local payment methods, local currency, localized willingness to pay pricing, and all the stuff that Paddle can deal with. But there's a lot to consider there. And, we've produced a bunch of content around this that we can share with anyone interested. But fundamentally, I do see an internationalized self-serve strategy as one of the key differentiators in very high growth SaaS businesses right now.
Yeah, I can agree more. I mean, we're an SEO agency, and we're always taking people to new international markets, and that's one of the core things you've got to look at there. When you touched upon, how are you tailoring to them? What languages do you have to do, and how do you launch and assess there? Even though people are, for instance, searching for something, the intent of that search is going to be completely different per country, and I think people do have that blanket rollout approach. And AI allows them to think they can do that, but then the importance of native speakers, the importance of actually dedicated country managers is so intrinsic, and that's how we worked effectively when we're working on SEO campaigns, because we can identify what is it you're trying to say to your audience here, locally, when what in the US or English speaking territories that you're used to targeting. How is that search reflected internationally? because it's not always going to be the same thing. Some search intent might be completely different. Some people might not even have that type of terminology to look for that thing. So then you've got to find a whole new solution. It's how you're going to talk about your solution in a way that answers a completely different question over there. With essentially the same content. And it's, we love mapping out that strategy and that challenge here on how we're going to really get the same people looking at the same tool for the same solutions, but they've got there a completely different way because of the nuance of language. And that's kind of the SEO and the content person in me that really lights me up. But I think you made the point yourself. It's so important to be able to tailor that to the specific regions. But I think, given what you've said there, what Paddle, what the market report can issue is like, where are they hot right now to allow you to invest more smartly? And I think that's what a lot of this comes down to. You provide so much data, and really it's helping people understand where to invest their marketing efforts, right?
Yep.
What would you, if we're sort of getting to the wrapping up point, thank you, we've used a lot of your time, and it's all been great to hear your key insights and the journey you've been on. I don't know if there's any sort of final summary, any key takeaways you can give to SaaS marketers right now.
My biggest takeaway for SaaS marketers is to just continually progress towards operating like a business owner, not a marketer. My background is as a founder before I became a marketer, and I think making sure that you understand the value chain you sit in the market, you understand how your business actually makes money, you understand kind of what customer acquisition cost and margin profile looks like. If you constantly progress yourself by understanding the business context you're in, then you could be a better marketer. And I think the challenge facing many mid-level marketers right now is that they operate entirely within the marketing silo. And so make friends across your organization, make friends in your senior team, make sure you understand how your business makes money and what the plan is of the next few years. And then some of the marketing strategy can take care of itself, because it just ladders up to the overall corporate strategy.
I think that's a brilliant shout. You have this, marketing moves so quickly, and you get this marketing fatigue, and these marketers get frustrated when decisions above them are being made and they're having to react to that. Whereas actually, I agree with that mentality. Let's actually look what's in our own hands. What can we control as marketers? And rather than worrying about variables that are going to be changed, you have to react to that. Get to know those variables better. Get to know them and react to them more, right? And if you're taking that mentality in your own business, that so helps you take that to your prospect's business. So then you can empathise with them in a completely different way, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Brilliant. I think that's a really good key takeaway. Well, not just did we get through the interview with loads of interesting information, but without any animal noise interruptions, which we heard at the start. Because I think you've got is that right? You've got livestock within your grounds. Is that you've got a few chickens and things roaming around?
We've got the best of both worlds. So we're surrounded by cow, sheep, and horse, but we don't own them and have to deal with them. So just neighbours.
Nice. Well, I appreciated their input at the very start.